In this video, we're going to talk about how to automate your process for everyone on your team to work together effectively remotely. So the goal is to ensure we follow an SOP so that everyone can work together effectively. Basically, this is the standard operating procedure we use for everyone that works at Autymate. So let's give you a quick overview. We use 7 rules and 3 tools to make it easy for everyone to be productive working together. The tools we use are Google Calendar for managing working hours, Monday for managing project work and tracking time, leaves, and the overall status of deliverables or milestones, Zoom for meeting together as a team. I like to think of Zoom as a virtual office where everybody has rooms, and while they're working, they need to be in a room. 7 musts for working as a team. First, we have attendance rules. So on the Google Calendar, you need to put your work schedule for when you're working. So if you're in a specific team, that team's calendar needs to be set so that everyone knows when you're planning on working. You set it on auto repeat so that it can be set, but then you'll move it around, and I'll show you how to do that in the video demo. Next, you have Zoom. Basically, you need to be online when you're scheduled to work. So when working, you need to ensure you're on Zoom 100% of the time, even if no one else is on. So we always use the same link for Zoom, so it makes it easy for everyone to join Zoom. You need to have an office setup. If you're working from home, the office setup must have a good internet, headset, and you should be able to share your video at any time so we can meet together and make it more personable. You also need to track your leaves and holidays. If you're not working for a day, you must have leaves requests and submit it, and we use a Monday link here provided on how to do that. Work tracking tools. So we use Monday to focus on a milestone or content delivery. So we ensure you understand, you need to make sure you understand the company milestones or the content that needs to be delivered and have a plan to achieve it. Also, your Monday statuses and your items must be accurate. Daily, you must keep the status of your task up to date and work to get everything to the green by the expected timeline. If you can't make the timeline during Scrum, you need to explain why and make sure you readjust it with the corrected timeline. Also, for time tracking on Monday, you have to track between 36 and 40 hours per week. Be sure that you have your time entered correctly by the end of the week and correct any timers you left running. There's a board that shows you all the timers you're running so you can easily figure. The execution of these rules are managed in a weekly report called the BVP Report, which is Business Value Point Report. The report tracks the team's performance in the 7 musts above, and the report is stacked ranked by the average of the rules and a weighted score. So let me explain how this works. This KPI has the hours with leaves, which is the total number of hours worked for the week with leaves or holidays. The BVP with leaves. 1 business value point is 4 hours of work for a completed result that pushes your key milestone forward. The rule is all employees must have a minimum of 6 business value points per week, meaning 24 hours of your time must have accomplished the goal or be in the customer's hands. So if you're working on a project and it's not in the customer's hands, well, there's no business value until it's in the customer's hands. Once it's in the customer's hands, then you get those points. And so you need to have an average of 6 BVPs per week over the last 6 months or 90 days as well. Or there's an issue, we need to figure out why your work isn't getting in the customer's hands, because the most important thing is getting work completed. We also have active track with leaves, which basically tracks time verification. So this is an example of the BVP report. You have everyone's name here. It's based on the week, so week 16. You have the average of these scores, which is the BVP with leaves. Then they have the average with the hours with leaves, how many hours were worked, and then you have the active track with leaves that verify these numbers are accurate. We also have observations where we say, hey, this is good, or there's an issue, and then we track those issues and just make sure everyone's on the right track. You're going to go in here and you're going to set the custom time range. Let's say it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. During the week, we're going to give it the name. Let's say this is for HR working schedule. And then you don't want to set it to busy. You probably want to set it to free, so that way people can put stuff on your calendar if you're using Calendly. Now let's say next week you're not going to be working for a day. Well, you're going to go in here. Let's say this day you're not working, so you're just going to delete that one. Okay, and you say this event. Okay. Now let's say the next day you're going to be focused on a different schedule. You're going to update that, and you can say this event. And then just make sure this is up to date. If I need to meet with you, I expect you to be on Zoom during this time. So you're just going to click the Zoom link. That's rule 2. And so I should expect to be able to, once this time is right at this point, I expect you to be on Zoom so we can meet. Rule number 3, just make sure your office setup has a good internet connection. Also make sure you use a headset so we can hear you well. Now, once you have your vacation days after your probationary period, then you get your holidays and casual leaves. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to apply for those based on the schedule. So if it's a vacation, you need to apply for it at least 30 days in advance. Casual leaves, the day before, you get only 5 casual leaves a year. So just make sure, there's very little notice on those. So just make sure that you apply for those as soon as you possibly can. You're going to send the dates, the leave type, and the reason for the leave. Be sure to fill out all the fields, and then we're going to approve it. There's an approval process. You'll get a Slack message, and it's all managed in Monday.com. Okay, so on every board there's a Scrum board. Now if you are on a board that has multiple teams, you might have Scrum, and then you'll have the name of the project that you're working on, right? Right here. This team here is our marketing team, and they have this board. So there's really 2 things I care about: the responsible party and the date that this item's been completed. So there's a baseline date. That's the date that this was set to be done. And then there's sub items to complete this task. And then basically all the time tracking and the timelines. Now these timelines need to be accurate on when you're going to complete them. You need to update them. There shouldn't be anything past due. So these items are past due. They weren't completed. Once they're marked as done, then they're no longer an issue. If you see a yellow, that means there's something that's they're maybe 30% off the estimate. I need to check that is okay, so that the issue goes away. We look at this daily during Scrum, which is our stand-up meeting. Basically what you need today. Do you have any blockers? And we're 100% focused on achieving this goal based on the timeline. Removing blockers and making sure we deliver. So you should never have anything in the red. You want to make sure you track your time. When you do start the timer on something, you want to make sure you set the in progress. When it's done, you need to make sure you set it to done. You need to make sure your items are not red. If there's something that's yellow, we'll review that during Scrum. Make sure that everything's okay, the project's on track, and so we should get to nothing being red by the end of the Scrum meeting. But make sure you track your time accurately. We also have a board called My Work. If there's any running timers, you can look at the running timers. Make sure you stop your timer, check it every time before you leave or go on break, so that way the timer's not running. There could also be 2 timers running at a time, which is a problem, so just make sure you close your other timer out. It's easy to find that out. Now, as far as marketing is concerned, you don't have any past due items. Make sure you're not on this list, and we want to make sure that we get everything completed. Mark your items that requires approval so they can get reviewed. Now, these are your hours worked. Everyone needs to make sure they have 40 hours worth of time. And then also make sure that these are the hours remaining for the week. Now, if you're running low on hours, which you can see here, if you change it to the days view, you need to make sure, hey, I don't have work for next week. You can adjust the timelines here on the items that you're working on and move them around. But you should have, at the beginning of the week, 8 hours assigned. If you need help getting your work on the board, please let us know. Your manager can help you figure out your schedule, but make sure you have work. If you are out of work and we basically found out, hey, you didn't let us know, then that's an issue. If you're out of work because we couldn't get you to work and you couldn't figure out something to do and you've told us, then that's okay. But you got to tell us repeatedly that you're out of work to make sure there's no issues with your timeline. Now, if you adjust the timeline here, it changes the dates and times on these items, so try to complete these things on time. And you can move these things around on the board. Please make sure you track at least 40 hours. So if I get rid of the filter here and make sure it's everybody, everyone needs to make sure they're tracking 40 hours per week. So if you scroll up here on this board, you can see hours worked. We implemented this here. We have, this week we're low on some hours. It's not the completion of the week, but there needs to be 35 or 40 hours in the hours work column on the My Work. Now, if you're working on something, there's also a board called Remaining Work, REM, and then you can see, hey, what's remaining for me to do? Basically, that's your time minus your estimate. So if you have an estimate of an hour and a half and you worked an hour, so you have half an hour remaining. So that's basically how you focus on your milestones. Also, you make sure your statuses are correct and accurate on a daily basis, and you do your time tracking. Okay, you may also be on the to-dos board. If you're on the to-dos board for tracking your time, this is more for developers. And with this time tracking, what you need to do is make sure you track your time. We need to make sure everything's completed within the timeline. You shouldn't have anything in the red here. It needs to be in a done status by the state. You also need to track your time on these items. And you need to make sure you deliver them on time based on the estimates. Now, we have everything grouped in different groups, so it'd be good to understand, here's QA, here, to be deployed, here's items that require review, and basically your goal is to get everything at the bottom of the board in the done status. Once everything's been, basically there's a done and there's reviewed, basically statuses here. Let me open that up real quick. We have 2 different done status. You mark it done, and then your manager marks it reported as done. Once it's marked as reported as done, you get your BVP points on that time if it's a user story or something that earns BVPs. That's something that we're actually providing value to the customers. You also have a time tracking dashboard, And this is where you can track all your, make sure your hours are accurate and everything on that board.